Well, Mr. DeGuerin, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight, sir. It's a real pleasure getting a chance to talk with you.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
You know, we've discussed Carter's Country before on this program, including the fact that, the Washington Post ran a big story, the hidden life of guns, and your client, Carter's Country gun store in Houston, Texas, was named as the number one source for firearms sold in Texas, recovered in Mexico. Only after that story ran did we learn that your client was cooperating with the ATF, that was in contact with the ATF, and the ATF was telling your client, go ahead, make these sales. You're going to be helping us out. Am I getting this right so far?
Yeah, that's right. We were that's Carter's Country was doing what the ATF had asked them to do, and that is to go through with sales that sometimes they might not have made on their own. They might have said, well, this looks a little suspicious. Mm-hmm. But the ATF agents that were dealing on the ground level with the personnel at Carter's Country said, no, we need your help. We want to follow these guns. We want to know who the people are, and you can help us. So that's what Carter's Country did. They tried to be the good citizens that they were asked to be and have always been, only to have it blow up in their face.
Yeah, and as you say, I mean, they said they were going to follow these guns, and yet, as we know, some of them ended up in Mexico, which sounds an awful lot like Operation Fast and Furious.
You know, I don't know whether this was Operation Fast and Furious or Operation Gun Runner or Operation Twiddly-Dinks. It didn't matter to Carter's Country what they called it. It's just what they were asked to do, and they were happy to do it if they believed, as they were told, that this was going to help track down gun running to the cartels in Mexico. So, but, once the guns left Carter's Country, then it's up to the ATF to follow, arrest, interdict, block, whatever they were going to do. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what they did.
Well, absolutely. And, yesterday there was a House Oversight Committee hearing into Fast and Furious, which, of course, was based out of Phoenix. But we learned a couple of interesting things relating to Houston. Apparently there was a meeting in which the Fast and Furious operation and, the procedures in Fast and Furious, which allowed these guns to end up in the hands of bad guys, there was a meeting in which that was discussed. The head of the ATF office in Los Angeles was present, and we also learned that the head of the ATF office in Houston was present. This was back in 2010. There was also an email that was released from the former special agent in charge of the Phoenix office to one of his friends at the National Security Council, in which he references a program called GRIT, which was a gun trafficking operation that was based out of Houston, Texas. So there's more indications, Mr. DeGuerin, that there were at least agents in the Houston area who were aware of what Fast and Furious was doing. Would you like to see the scope of the inquiry broadened to include whether or not guns were being allowed to walk from Houston, Texas?
Well, of course, and they were. This started with Carter's Country in early 2006. This isn't something that, as I understand, Fast and Furious, it started only in 2010. We're talking about 4 years earlier.
Where, again, the agent said, make the sale, we're going to watch them, and then the next thing you know, the guns are turning up at crime scenes in Mexico.
Right. What we know is that there were some prosecutions in Houston for some of the straw purchasers. And some of the information that was provided by Carter's Country was used in those prosecutions. Carter's Country keeps very detailed and complete records, and their records they keep for years and years beyond the length of time that they're supposed to keep them. But that's, and they've always allowed access to any agent that had a right to ask for it. But more than that, they voluntarily would notify the agents when a suspicious transaction was going on or had been completed. And that sometimes they didn't understand that it was suspicious until after it was over, but at the same time, the Carter's Country compliance manager would promptly notify the ATF that this morning or yesterday in the store there was these guns were sold, and here's the information on it. Sometimes that would result in an agent coming out and watching during the transaction, but sometimes it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while, Carter's Country did what ATF asked him to do, and that is call and stall. Call the ATF, stall the purchase for enough time that the ATF can get out there, and the ATF would watch and follow the people. But that didn't always work out.
You know, one of the things that I learned yesterday when I was doing some research into this Operation Grit that was based in Houston, part of that project was to go in and look over the books of FFLs. I think they did 1,100 compliance checks with FFLs. Now, what I thought was interesting is only one revocation of an FFL license occurred as a result of that, massive investigation into gun stores in the Houston area. 1,100 investigations. There was one revocation. That tells me, Mr. DeGuerin, that the FFLs are, again, they're above board. They're doing what the ATF asked them to do. They're following the law, and this isn't where the problem lies.
Well, there's probably a few bad apples out there, but certainly with Carter's Country, they've been assiduously following what the regulations require them to do and what the agents requested them to do. And I assume that there are other federal firearms license holders that have done the same. I don't know that for a fact, but I would be very surprised if this were just only Carter's Country. In fact, the Washington Post article named a number of the larger gun dealers, Carter's Country being at the top. But the point is, federal firearms license holders are regulated by the ATF, and that means that the ATF agents, beginning on the ground level all the way up to the supervisors, can make them or break them.
Yeah.
And when you've got a huge investment like Bill and Ellen Carter have, they've been in the business for 50 years. They've got 4 stores and a huge warehouse. Mm-hmm. And, that's their lifeblood. And they could be shut down overnight by some angry ATF agent. So they're taking a chance by speaking out like this. But we're also very cautious about any hint of retaliation or against the Carters, and we will, if that ever happens, and it hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that they've even been threatened with it. If that happens, we're going to be screaming bloody murder.
Well, absolutely. Mr. DeGuerin, again, I really appreciate you coming on the program, and I look forward to getting updates from you, sir, as they warrant.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Dick DeGuerin, attorney for Carter's Country Gun Store in Houston, Texas, joining us here tonight on Cam & Company.